I use a pyramid: truth, good, and beauty. You can invert that pyramid. It can be a lie, bad, evil, but it can be beautiful. Evil may be beautiful. Get what I'm saying?
I have immediately a question about your latest film. Although I feel like I could ask you 100 of questions, or just sit with you in silence, and that like would be equally powerful experiences. But since I'm one of the interviewees with Martin here, I just want to ask, the simplest question. So why did you decide to use animation? And the second question is why the main characters are children?
Most of my films, when they came out, were looked upon as coffee table books, hippie dribble, stoner movie, don't waste your time. First of all, I've wanted to make this film for years. The hardest thing to do is humor. So the older you get, if you're still corpus mentis, you get more childlike. Now, I never grew up. Soderbergh never grew up. John Kane never grew up. I could go on. I work with people who never grow up. Okay, that's very important. Who are able to live, not have a job, but live their art. When you deal with tragedy, which the world is ensconced in, uh, you have to deal with humor as well. Octavio, let's see, Umberto Eco wrote this beautiful book, The Name of the Rose. Okay, and that's about a book that disappeared probably into the Vatican's secret library.
Aristotle's comedy.
Yes, and comedy is like the odd one in, to use a phrase. It questions authority. Comedy questions authority. So nobody wants to do that. And that book disappeared as sitting in the secret archive. So there are a lot of secrets out there. And that's why um, children are so important. It's made with children, for children of all ages. Um, the child is authentic. I didn't have actors. None of these kids were actors at all. They were kids off the streets or from other countries who didn't have socialized reaction. When you get a kid who's been an actor, they have socialized reactions. Um, these kids reacted authentically. So that's why we had children.
Hmm.
The animation had no AI in it. It was all handmade. It was all made on a table about 4 feet wide and 6 feet long. It deals with what I call sympathetic magic. It's a real term. It means distortion for clarity. So the whole thing you saw, which was 100 feet high, 100 feet wide, 100 feet deep, was done on a little bitty table. Now that takes time. The average age of the crew, 27, came from all over the world. And we don't meet virtually. We have to meet together. Boom. The bell rings at 10 o'clock. We go home at 7 or 8 or 9, or we don't go home. I usually live in my studio.
I was surprised not only because you returned to animation, but also, for me, the film is a kind of summary of your entire filmography because I noticed that you directly referencing your earlier films in this one.
The
Not
I
only Cats trilogy, but also, for example, the Evidence, Anima
Visitors.
Mundi.
I used, except for one image, everything in there was what I either with the crew created for this film or used from the other films. You put a frame around it, you can change the context. So it's all original with stuff that's been done for 50 years with Philip and the crew. So it was a great, and it's all predicated on fun. If it ain't fun, don't do it. It's got to, because you're living your life. You live many lives, die many deaths doing this. And everybody has to have a good time.
There are so many great scenes. I really like the one with Greta Thunberg with photocopied face, but I like even more the one with Mike Tyson improvising like in jazz. It is truly fantastic. And the question is, how did you manage to convince Mike Tyson to act for free?
Well, he didn't act for free. It cost about a fee of $10,000. The reason for that is that he came with a lot of security. He came with all kinds of people, a big deal. So I heard him on Spike Lee's off-Broadway play. And here's a guy, when he speaks, he doesn't say, he's got it all clear. Spike Lee, who's known not to even give you a chance to ask the question, could hardly get a word in edgewise. So I figured that this was a criminal to fight criminals. And as it turns out, a lot of the guys in my building and where I lived right across the street grew up with Mike Tyson. Uncle George introduced him to Jake LaMotta. So it was like a reunion for him. And he came, we didn't want a word spoken either from the lady from Iran or from Mike Tyson or from the Apple Man or the crazy man. Everybody spoke in gibberish, clear as can be. So there's not a spoken word, yet it's completely spoken. So you can say it's linear and non-linear exactly at the same time, clear and ambiguous exactly at the same time. And to be clear, for the critics, this is the only film they can't tattoo with documentary. Okay, this is the narrative film, a narration with a rebus language that we can all understand through the body expression of the people giving. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not the story, it's the storyteller.
Actually, it ends with a question, although there is a quotation from Homer Simpson as a post-credit scene, right? But it ends with a question of which age is this, the sunset or the dawn? Asking a few...
Important, let me say this. This is not a fairy tale. Fairy tales have laudable ethical considerations, but they always have a happy ending.
Right.
It's a bardic tale done in the time of Homer and Heraclitus. This was not a happy ending, a resolute beginning. This is what we have. So it's a hopeful film for those that are willing to be hopeless about this world. Shall I say that again? It's a hopeful film for those that are willing to be hopeless about this world. These kids are not of the future, they are the future. The demographics tell us that. So they are the people I want this film to aim at. It's a family film.
And sitting here today, like, what possibility seems more likely to you, whether we are at the dawn or the sunset of...
Well, here's the thing. The darkest hour is always before the dawn. Always before the dawn, it becomes the darkest time. It's not for me to say, it's for me, my answer is to ask you the question. The question is the mother of the answer. And we have to be like in the movie Heroes, resisting our destiny, a resolute beginning. Throw the gizmos away. Burn them. This is very anti-tech, anti-agency, anti-isms. All the things that we depend on, we flip upside down. the stories we were told. We've tried to retell them.
Godfrey, there are so many fascinating stories about your past. Can we talk about it?
You wish to?
Uh,
My family comes from Piemonte, Italy, where the Pope comes from, actually. My relative that came over here was Francois Marie de Reggio. He was an engineer, a captain in the military. He was a mercenary, but quite a good one. And they sent him to Louisiana right after it was made to bring order to about 5,000 people, 4,000 of which were Black people. He became, at that point, Francois Marie de Reggio became the first head of the Cabildo of the government as Francisco Maria de Reggio. His real name is Francesco Maria de Reggio. He's a chameleon, and he rewrote the Code Noir. The Code Noir was the French code for how to treat Black people like animals. He said it wasn't done strong enough, so he rewrote it with another relative of mine, a Vilry. He hung people in the square. He makes the Sopranos look like Boy Scouts going after TV sets. They went after the land. Who controls the land controls the world in their place. His great-grandson, his mother, Reggio, fired the first shots of the Civil War, Pierre Gustave Toussaint Beauregard. He has an interesting ending, though. I could go into that later. He wasn't like Lee or Jefferson. He helped the Black people afterwards, made them money. Anyway, and the Jim Crow laws of today, you know what Jim Crow is? It's Jim and Jane Crow. Those are the legacies of my family. Everything I make is autobiographic, so it's in all my films. This is my response to my family. I love my family, you understand. They send Donald Trump cakes at Christmas and birthdays and all of that. But I do love them, and I'm considered the odd one in the family.
Godfrey, why did you decide to join the Order of Christian Brothers? What prompted this decision? I wonder, did you aspire to be a monk, or maybe you simply didn't know?
I aspired to get out of New Orleans. I aspired to get out of New Orleans. Racism is not in the head, it's in the atmosphere. I grew up for years. We all had slingshots, but we all called them nigger shooters. Nigger shooters. Or don't nigger lip that cigarette, boy. Or what's the matter with you? So as I was in the kindergarten at Robert E. Lee School, I got thrown out of school for wasting time and annoying others. My daddy, being a Cajun, spent his days in the bar selling insurance, and he taught me the boogie woogie and all kind of music and poetry, and I danced like a monkey on the bar with a tin cup, mind you, to get money to buy drinks for everybody. Anyway, I got in a lot of trouble. I lived in a pretty rough neighborhood of the Bolettos, the Coladas, the Dantes, the Reggios, the De Silvas. And so I decided, and I lived in a tree house. I had a detective agency with Big Bobby De Silva. Our specialty was switchblades, the kind that come out like that. And I decided to get away from home at 14. Well, I decided at 13. My mother was horrified. My father said, let him do whatever he wants. And I became a Christian brother at 14 and thrown out of the order at 28, excarcerated.
You got thrown out, so you didn't step out.
I didn't step out. I was asked to leave the order. We all take vows among poverty, chastity, obedience. We take the vow to teach the poor gratuitously. like most vows done years ago, they become vestigial. They don't work. So I worked with street gangs for years. Yeah, it got thrown out. It's controversial. Brothers don't want to be controversial. Bank robbers appearing at 3 in the morning under the brother's house in the monastery is not a good idea. The other brothers.
Did this experience have influenced your approach to filmmaking?
What?
The order, this time in the order.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm
In what
never.
way?
I was glad I went in and glad I got thrown out. Uh, Before Koyaanisqatsi was made, I wanted to make a film because I was inspired by Buñuel's Los Olvidados, The Young and the Damned. I was going to make a film on the barrio, but I didn't know how to do it without words. So Koyaanisqatsi became my attempt at doing it without words, not about the barrio. But now today, with PBS and barrio leaders who are not young anymore, but now young ones, 5 generations, actually, the oldest 105, we're doing the Bardic Barrio project with PBS.
So it came a full circle then.
Yes, it did. Indeed. About children. It's all about children. Teach the poor gratuitously, freely. Freely. Everything should be free. Everything. Money fucks up everything. Earth, air, water, fire, money.
How did you make this step? I mean, have you been always fascinated by film, for example, and only waited for the right moment, or at one point decided that, this is your means to achieve something,
No, I never thought of film until I saw Buñuel's film. And while I couldn't do that, I was working in the same environment he was. That's why I
Right.
wanted to do it with the kids. But then I realized I had to, pay my dues. So Koyaanisqatsi, Powakatsi, Nakoikatsi, Visitors, the Holy See, Blowjob, Urban Removal, 11 films to get ready for Once Within a Time. Took me that long. Let me repeat, humor is the most difficult of all the tasks that anyone can have on a stage. It becomes corny. You don't want it to be corny. You want it to be unexpectedly funny. Funny.
Was it only Buñuel? I read that also.
What Baudelaire says, humor is the stigmata of original sin. That's how serious it is.
But was it only about Buñuel? I've read that it was also Maya Deren, for example, or Stan Brakhage that sort of pushed you towards
No, I
filmmaking.
understand very well, but he's his films are like he tapes things to the films. I tape them to the walls here. We're good buddies, but we use a different form. In art, all meaning is in the form. Our forms are different. I use music, no words in any of the films, even though this film is Once Within a Time is full of words, but you have to say what they say. And I use music because music doesn't go through metaphor, like language is based on metaphor. This compared to that equals this. Music goes directly to the soul of the listener, can't be controlled. That's why the church, the government, they don't want anything to do with music. They want to control it. So the music that Philip plays is not controllable. It leaves you free. It's an autodidactic, therefore, experience.
For example, have you heard Philip Glass's music before Koyaanisqatsi? Was he your first choice to do it because you've known his?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know anything about music except Gregorian chant. And I'll give you a little side on that at the end. So a composer herself, very brilliant, and a pianist, Marcia Mikulak, gave me a tutorial of several weeks of all the existing composers. And the moment I heard Philip, it said it was always ascending and never arriving, always descending and never getting there. It had a foreground and a background. Here is the guy. So how to get him? He's not interested in movies, you understand. And only some friends of mine got him to agree to see me so I wouldn't drive him crazy. So I showed him footage from Four Corners. I played Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition rendered by the electronic Tomita, the Japanese composer. And then I played a piece of his music. And I said, well, you can see, Philip, that your music is better. And he says, I have to agree. That's how I'm beginning. That's a real story. He never thought we'd do anything with this film.
Is it true that Philip appeared around the time when the film was largely completed and his concept of music turned the editing upside down?
So it's similar, but not that. Michael Homnig from the Tangerine Dream was hired by me to be the music director. He's a brilliant guy. He mixed it orchestrally. Hold on. In fact, we mixed the whole film orchestrally, meaning you want to hear the instruments. His crew came in, Kurt Casey, Michael Reisman, they conduct or the producers, and they went ballistic. They said, we're pulling the film. He says, you don't understand nothing. He says, he does classical sound, real sound, and we make it electronic with these huge pillars of speakers, etc., so that the mixer is part of the ensemble. Now, I didn't get that. So that copy's at Harvard right now, but nobody will ever hear it probably except someone like you or a scholar. So we redid the whole thing in the manner that it was supposed to be done. And that's the story you're referring to.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about the idea of the film? Did you plan this film as an experiment?
Oh, I don't like the word experimental, but I'm labeled, you experiment in science. I'm not an experimenter. I stay focused. I listen to my muses and I start working. The work will appear, and I leap, the net will appear, all of those good sayings. And that's how I do it. And I do it with other people through a collaborative form. I want only people with strong egos, but no vanity of ego. Because every day we meet, from the cook to myself to Philip, we all look at the footage and everybody has access to the main frame. Everybody has to be able to live in a critical form. So we don't tell. A critical forum means you say what you feel rather than what the master wants to hear.
Was Krakowski based on any kind of a script?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, everything is based on a script, but I call them talking papers. Mm-hmm. Because we explore it together. I give them my rap and they give me their response, and together through conjugation. It's like an intercourse of concept. That's how we arrive at the score. And as we do it, we get so ready that we're getting ready for spontaneity, for that which we cannot possibly foresee ahead of time. See what I'm saying? When you're out shooting, you go with a plan. Otherwise, you're just messing around. I go super prepared. That preparation prepares me for spontaneity, something I couldn't have thought of in the moment. So that's what we're hoping. That's an act of God.
how did you meet Ron Fricke?
I met Ron Fricke through Ray Jimenez, my alter ego. Ron Fricke was a painter on the plaza. He had gone to film school in Oklahoma. I was looking to do a project for the American Civil Liberties Union on the use of surveillance to control behavior, invasion of privacy, everything that, what's his name, that revealed everything recently?
Snowden.
Said. We said back in 1974, 10 more years and counting, leading up to Orwell's 1984. So Ray introduced me to Ron. Ron was super excited. He's a technical genius and a framing genius. But he and I see the world completely different. He feels so privileged to be here. He feels that I see the world in a monstrous way. But that's okay. You don't have to agree with everybody. We love each other. I admire his brilliance. I gave him the task. He filmed it gorgeously. I employed him for the next film, which was our idea together to make this film. And he did a magnificent job. And then I decided, well, I'm going to do another film now. In fact, maybe others. And I don't want to keep working with Ron because I've now exhausted what I wanted to do with him. So in the second film, I worked with Leo Zardimus and Graham Barry, who to compare is to belittle, as my wife says, but they're not comparable. Graham Barry knew all of the f-stops in his head. He didn't have to read the book. Leo Zardimus flew with the geese. He was the first guy to fly in IMAX with the geese. So I had some very competent guys, and I could go on for all the other shows.
Ron Fricke's own film, Baraka, is much more optimistic, I would say, right? It's very kind of...
You bet it is. Now, this is
different, right?
Rod uses an eclectic score. The guy that scores IMAX, a genius guy, but he doesn't... A score needs a spine, a head, feet, hands, arms, embrace. Has to be done with the same composer, in my opinion. So that hasn't happened with Ron, but his film was more popular when it came out than Koyaanisqatsi. Now it's not, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was 92, right? So 10 years after Koyaanisqatsi.
Yeah.
And 30 years from now, actually. And whenever I watched Koyaanisqatsi, I always had the impression that it's, that it's more than a film, that it's something, that it has something of a ritual. And I was wondering,
Adaptations. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, did you ever think about it this way? I mean, that in a situation where all these past rituals for more and more people, they no longer have the resonance they once had. So it is cinema suddenly that can satisfy this need for...
Cinema is a meta language.
Yeah.
It speaks in a different form than the literate language, but we see the world through language. So how to make art, give art a voice, and you do it through the visual and the oral. One without the other is like a day without a dawn. So that is the connection. Philip and I, for a long time, wanted to do an opera called the Dies Irae. Okay, days of
wrath.
Yes, of wrath. Ire, days of ire. IRE, the IRE. Why would the IRE? I learned it at 14. Dies Irae, Dies. Philip, when he went to Boulanger in France, the first thing they taught him, we're going to teach you the 5 magic notes. And they taught him the Dies Irae. Kubrick uses it. It's in movies. These 5 notes are everywhere. They're all over the universe. And Philip had to memorize them, and so did I. And finally, we got a chance to do it. And Philip said, and I said, we'll put no words to this. We'll have the kids hum. every major composer has done a dies irae. Every major composer, Verdi, etc. And Philip knew this, everybody knows it, but nobody has ever done it without words, just humming the score.
And I have always wondered, what do you think of Terrence Malick? I mean, for example, the Tree of Life with its sequence of, you know, the birth of the universe, and then
like that. I like the guy that did all of that for him. He did all of the stuff for 2001.
right.
He did, the guy did it, Trumbull.
Douglas Trumbull.
He developed a projection system called ShowScan. And he, for whatever, I was giving a lecture at UCLA or UC, hell if I can't remember, in his class, and he said, I would like to elect the perfect film to exhibit the best projection system ever made, and he wanted Powakatsi, and I loved it. It's 3D without the glasses. Like everybody, but you'd have to retech the technology. And anyway, I didn't get to do it, and I'm sorry. Pollock and I produced a film for Tom Lowe, who came into photography through seeing Koyaanisqatsi. We produced Tom's film called, what's it called, Marty?
Awakening.
Awakening. We were executive producers. We've never met each other, but I admire his films, especially the one with the guy I was just talking about. I forgot his name. Does all the special effects.
When we read about your films, the phrase films by Godfrey Reggio are non-narrative. It always appears.
Yeah, but it's not true. It's just that they don't know the nature of the narrative. It's a different, it's a reboost. It's a language we've lost how to speak.
So it's a
These are narrative films, but they're narrative like going to a gallery or a museum. Some people pass in front of the pictures like on a roller coaster. Others could sit there a whole day and watch the same picture unfold. So it is a narrative, like a painting is a narrative, or a song is a narrative. Yeah. The beauty of art is that it has no meaning. Let me say that again. The beauty of art is that it has no meaning. Let's take the sunset. If you were there with your beloved, he or she, and you say, wonder what the sunset means tonight, that's an idiot question. Did it move me? Did it touch me? That's what art is about. It's not definable. It's a monad, a singular cell object. An object.
I was quite, maybe not surprised, but when I read that you wanted to be as far as possible from making people change their minds about our planet, you know, or something with Koyaanisqatsi, you know, that you didn't want it to be like a propaganda, even if it was for the good cause, right?
Right. As I told you, I'm a conservative or a reactionary. Okay, right and left. That sounds severe good, because we need a new language to re-see the world. Primitive, reactionary is who we are.
You talk about the language, but how about reimagining the world? I mean, do you think like contemporary cinema can help us to reimagine?
Yeah. I get many requests on the Zoom, on email. Many come here to see me, and they want to know what I think about their film. So I don't want to tell them what I think unless they want to hear exactly what I tell them, which is exactly what I feel, because I'll tell them not a lie. This is not, sometimes there's a time for white lies when you don't want to hurt someone, but this, when you're a filmmaker, you want to hear the truth, okay? And So I have a lot of kids coming around and I tell them what I think. I see the movie and that's what happens from all over the place.
Have you seen something recently that actually is some kind of way of, again, reimagining our contemporary world, you know, something that made an impression on you? All right.
Does that look like a happy face?
No.
No.
He's a 23-year-old kid who made a movie a little too long, I told him, but it's full of pathos.
Hmm.
He's tried to kill himself many times, slashing his wrist, blah, blah, blah. This is his therapy. This is his spells and incantations. So in advising people, films are always personal, unless you're working for the man. I get auteurs, young people who are struggling to make their own film. So this was a struggle with his terrible demon of trying to kill himself. And he used it as therapy, and he's now on the way to his own cure. He cured himself rather than going to the loony farm. So all those kind of stories come in again because films are autobiographical, whether you know it or not. They always speak about yourself.
What are your thoughts on the potential to provoke social change through filmmaking? Is it possible?
Yes, I think so. I trust kids. They have access to get. See, now we are homo technicus. We become the tools we use. We are predators by nature. And the tools we use, there was a covenant between those that eat and those that were eaten. It was a holy thing. Everyone paid attention. But as soon as the first picture of God is a deer with a big penis and leaping through its soul. Megalomania is not a good thing, but usually many artists get megalomaniac. I'm that at times, but it's only example that changed the world. So I'll give you an example. Colorado was the first state in the United States, and if you looked at it as a nation state, the first nation to legalize marijuana after saying how horrible it was. Why? Because they found out they can make money. Now marijuana is legalized, I don't know if in your country, but in a lot of, okay, because it's it makes money. So we have to be, that which makes money is that which is going to be emulated or taken over. I remember being in India doing Powakatsi and everybody appeared with bell bottoms. Now, and they wear sandals, bell bottoms, or for hippies that wear boots. But it became popular, so they consumed the popularity and sold everyone who didn't need them bell-bottom pants in India. So be careful what you create; it will be consumed.
Let's talk about AI. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, and I wonder what is your opinion about it. Marshall McLuhan once said, first we shape our tools, then the tools shape us. What is your opinion on that?
Right. Well, he's right, I think. We become the tools we use. AI has been around for over 50 years, and it's something called, let me get it right, it's called DAPA, DAFA, the Defense Super Duper Black Hole Experimental Department that gets a budget as big as the rest of the Pentagon, and nobody knows what it is. AI is literally everywhere. The first shot we got at it was about 6 months ago when the Pope appeared in a big white coat. Everybody thought it was real. There's no veracity to any image any longer, both in the world that we see in the gizmo and the world that we live in called home. So AI infiltrates everything we do. We eat, we touch. It is, and it's on a course to controlling us. Now, they always say, those that are developing it, yes, it is dangerous, but we're going to put guardrails on it. No guardrail has ever worked, ever. So they're making the compound computer. When that goes in, AI will be 10,000 times more intelligent than human beings. 10,000 times. Now it's only thousands of times. So AI is ubiquitous and hidden in plain sight. It's so present, nobody even sees it anymore. It's normality. It's insane. That's why I say I'm a reactionary. Technology, education prepares you for a job to make what? Money. I'm going to rave if you keep asking me these questions.
You mentioned body art, and actually with artificial intelligence producing images out of images without human factor, you know, it's almost like literal what he meant by this simulacra, right? Because when he wrote about images producing images, I mean
The
body art,
illusion of
right?
the real, the illusion of the real, his book.
Yeah, the illusion of the real, and suddenly it's there. I mean, it's literal. I mean, these are images that were created out of images without any human interference, right?
Indeed, indeed, everywhere.
And actually, you know, I wonder because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and you know, I will definitely show her Krakowski in a couple of years. But I observe how much she's already attracted, you know, to the images and how she consumes like whole gigabytes of images, right? And I wonder maybe I should do something. Maybe I should somehow
Yeah,
mediate
that's a
between
good
her and the
idea.
images. But
The house is on fire. Your kid will have heard and seen this day more than the kid in the Middle Ages have seen in their entire lifetime. And that's just today.
yeah,
And I'm not making that up.
do
The
you have
average
any
attention,
hints?
the average attention span of you and me and all the kids is all of 2.5 seconds, maybe as high as 8.5.
Yeah. But the question is how to protect their, I mean, children's imagination to become oversaturated with, you know, with all these cliches and all these ready-made sort of images and visual kind of narratives, right? How
I
to,
children, the children I meet are not of um, what is that movie, Lord of the Flies?
Hmm.
They're a Paradiso Perduto, Paradise Lost. They know what's going on. They're more informed than anybody. And it's their world, as I said, not of the future. They are the future.
Hmm.
They outnumber us. They are the visible future. So it is in they that I trust. Not in God I trust, in the kids I trust, or the children of God.
Is there any universal ethics or morality that might be crucial for the survival of humanity in the long term?
Well, it's a big question. Morality plays second fiddle to what's in the mind. Morality is a social virtue, but we have to know who we are first. So it's what is of the mind. What's of the mind is that now we used to have a unified mind. Consciousness appears in the breakdown of the bicameral mind, where people, when they didn't have that, they used to hear the voices. We call them schizophrenic now. Those voices are real. So how to get back to our original state and realize that it's not crazy is the task at hand. To hear the voices. There's a great book, The God Within, The Demon Within, a Nobel laureate, what's his name? René Dubois, taught at Rockefeller University, a Frenchman. The God Within, the Demon Within, so human and animal. He pins us right down. What these guys are talking about, I prefer not to talk about. I try to let you feel it. This is what all is about, to feel. To feel.
So I guess this is also your view on pedagogy, right? You know, that the way you you need to be Socrates, right? You need to...
The question is the mother of the answer, Socrates, Aristotle. These are philosophers of the word. They come after the pre-Socratic philosophers of Heraclitus and Homer. With the word. And film is the word made flesh. The etymology of flesh is screen that covers our body. So filmmaking is making the word flesh so you can touch it, you can conjugate with it, you can embrace it, you can love it, hate it. But we're not made to hate, we're made to love. I think.
Godfrey, what are you...
If I might say this, in the Middle Ages, there was a writer, I'm very fond of him, called Blessed Thomas à Kempis. He wrote The Imitation of Christ. Right. And in it he says, would you rather know love or would you rather feel it? I hope you would rather feel it.
Godfrey, what are you currently working on? Do you plan any new films, maybe?
I have two projects, the Bardic Barrio. I don't go anywhere anymore. I can't leave my studio, really. I'm paralyzed from the legs down, pretty much. And so I'm a consigliere to Sam Leyba and Carlos Cervantes. You don't know them, but they're epic in the barrio here in New Mexico. And we're doing that with PBS. And then I'm doing a project with John Kane and a few other people on canned laughter. You know what canned laughter is?
Yeah.
There you go. I'm a big fan of canned laughter. And I want to use adverts and politicians and little short pieces. I want to do a piece called The March of Times, like shorts in the, like it used to be in the theaters. So I'm trying to interest my distributors, the Beastie Boys of old, which might just take it up and do it as shorts in their art theaters. We'll see.
I was just wondering, you know, it's like a bonus question, but have you been recently fascinated by some kind of technological invention? I mean, obviously you described technology in Krakowski as this beautiful beast, right? I mean, it's a beast definitely, but at the same time, you can feel that there is an element of fascination or even like a sublimity of technology. So I was wondering whether you actually still consider this beast beautiful and perhaps you've seen or experienced something like from the technological inventions that is interesting for you.
I use a pyramid. Truth, good, and beauty. You can invert that pyramid It can be a lie, okay?
Mhm.
It can be bad, evil, but it can be beautiful. Evil may be beautiful. Get what I'm saying? Those are the 3 points of many philosophers. The truth, the good, the beauty. That's how revelation is given to human beings, where our language comes from. But you can invert that triangle, as I said, and beauty can belie the lie and the evil. So be careful of the beautiful. That's what Koyaanisqatsi is about, the beauty of the beast.
Yeah.
Thing our adoration of that beast is what produces global climate change, the eradication, all these kids suicide, the highest rates in the world right now. And I'm not criticizing them. Maybe they don't want to be in our world no more, some of these kids. Very high among native peoples all over the world. So it's a very heavy, 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 heavy time.
Do you consider yourself, agnostic?
Yeah.
Knows this, like that the material world is actually
I'm a Christian agnostic. We know nothing at all about God. We don't even know his name. The only name we have for God in the Bible is dog. Dog, D-O-G. So when you're clueless about who you are, you're a sucker to believe anything. So many isms telling you what to believe. I listen to country western singers. They're honest. I listen to Merle Haggard and the Texas Troubadours. They're honest. Johnny Cash, he's honest. D.S. Irae, he's honest. I don't listen to some of the big rap boys. They're just making money. Some of them are honest. I listen to music all day long, all kind of music. Grateful Dead, The Legion of Mary with Jerry Garcia, blow your mind. You can listen to it all day.
amen to that.
Amen. A woman.
A woman.
That's right.
Okay, guys, our time is coming to an end. It was a great pleasure to meet you, Godfrey.
Okay, so you're going to keep now. Let me mention something. There's a
Yep.
because this film was only Once Within a Time was only 52 minutes.
Yes.
At that time, in 2023, 22, Soderbergh said it's not going to be long enough to get us booking. He since realized that that's wrong for all kind of good reasons, not blaming at all. So we made a film called The Making of Once Within a Time.
Hmm.
Now, I never like to reveal the magic, the sympathetic magic, but we did, and it's become immensely popular, especially with filmmakers. And I
Hmm.
recommend that you get that from my wife.
Oh yes,
Oh,
for
yes,
sure.
please,
Sure, it
please,
sounds
please.
great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've seen it.
No, I haven't, but it's a
Oh,
great idea to program it.
Marty, can you get that to them? Yeah, my wife's going to work on it.
That would be great. And on a personal note, and can I send you my film? Then it's also 40 minutes long.
Yeah. How many minutes?
40 minutes, so
Yes, certainly. I'd be happy to
that
see
would
it.
be great. It's an adaptation of Solaris. So, talking Soderbergh, Stanisław Lem's Solaris, but made with found footage materials from the 60s, So I tried to use educational from the 60s to make a narrative about.
Krakowski did that also. That yeah.
Thank you.
and we hope we will see you again soon during your masterclass at Krakow Film Festival.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Mhm.
Hey guys.
So Godfrey, all the best. Have a good day and
Have a good day.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.